Hello and happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome into a brand new edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. I am your host, Andy Herman. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a great show lined up for you today. I'm going to be going over my grades. I want to talk a little bit more about Corey Linsley because I still don't feel like he's getting the credit that he deserves. I also want to tell you about our audio version of the podcast. Make sure to check out Dusty, Steve, and Sarah today, talking a little bit about Aaron Rodgers on his appearance on the Pat McAfee show, breaking down how the Packers offense matches up with the Titans defense, and of course maybe a little bit of Christmas food talk as well. But make sure to check that out, and if you haven't yet, please make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. Greatly appreciate that as well. Almost to 2,000 followers, so thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate it. But if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. But let's jump in right away. Want to go over a little bit about Corey Linsley because I know people are talking Pro Bowl snubs, and I talked a little bit about it yesterday with Robert Tonyan and Corey Linsley, but I just want to give to you for a moment my grades on Corey Linsley so far this year because it really paints a really strong picture of just how amazing Corey Linsley was before going out with injury. Just to kind of give you some idea, a plus 1.00 grade for an offensive lineman is a really good day, and that's going to get you in conversation for one of the top 3 graded players on offense if you're in that plus 1.0 category. And again, that is a really, really good day. That basically means that you're playing consistent football. You're not allowing pressures. You're playing solid as a run blocker. Like it's just a very good overall score. So anything above that, very, very good. And Corey Linsley, before he went out to injury, here were his scores week by week this season. Plus 1.05, plus 1.55, plus 1.15, plus 2.15, plus 1.2, plus 0.65, plus 1.3, plus 1.15, plus 1.0, plus 0.3, plus 0.65. And anything in the positive is a solid game. Like 0 would be basically your neutral game, -1 to -2. Like I've had Byron Bell's like grade, like I'd have to look back, but like I think like -4, -5 type games in the past, like just brutal games. Plus 1 is good. So for let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 11 games that he played in this season, he was plus 1.0 or better. Never a negative grade, never even really close to a neutral grade. I mean, he was just absolutely dominant out on the field. And I know everyone doesn't get a chance to look at offensive line play all that often, or see what the center's doing on a snap by snap basis, but his snaps were consistent. He's getting to the second level. He's sealing blocks. He's very, very stout at the point of attack. His movement skills were better. Just everything that he was doing, and he was making everyone around him better, whether it was Lucas Patrick at guard, Lane Taylor at guard, Elton Jenkins at guard. Like everyone around Corey Linsley was better. And just with all the moving parts, with Rick Wagner coming in, with John Runyon coming in, it just didn't matter. And a huge part of that was due to Corey Linsley. And I think these last couple weeks, we haven't seen quite the level of consistency from the offensive line. And a huge part of that is because Corey Linsley hasn't been in there, and he's just kind of he's the quarterback of the offensive line. And we've started to see, I know David Bakhtiari in his press conference on Tuesday talked about Corey and how deserving he was. To me, he's right there in the conversation with the best centers in football right now. And, at some point we'll talk about free agency and, how Green Bay could maybe sign or whether they should sign Corey Linsley. And I know it's very much in vogue right now to talk about Elton Jenkins, and with the Packers being in such a tough spot with salary cap. Yeah, it can easily make sense that Green Bay goes with Elton Jenkins or Lucas Patrick at center next year. Maybe John Runyon gets an opportunity at one of those positions. Maybe you bring Lane Taylor back at a very discounted, probably vet minimum type of deal. Those are all things that could happen. But man, Corey Linsley's playing phenomenal football prior to going out with injury, and I very much expect him to pick right up where he left off as soon as he gets back. So just want to say again, he was phenomenal so far this season, very much deserving of any potential praise that he's getting from his fellow Packers. And if there's one player on the team, in my opinion, that really deserved to be in the Pro Bowl, even with the injury, I got to go with Corey Linsley. And I still think you can make an argument that he's been the best center in football so far this year. Also kind of an interesting, portion of the press conference today. I think this was the first time and I'm sure I don't get to see every press conference, so maybe I'm missing a couple here. This is the first time Matt LaFleur almost got a little bit snippy, and he was still pretty reserved. But usually, even if he gets a question, I mean, go back to the MVS question, right? How do you live with MVS? Even that he handled perfectly. But today he was asked, if he didn't get the job with Green Bay, if he would have stayed with Tennessee, and he said yes, and he didn't say anything more. And then the person who asked the question doubled down on it and asked basically the same version of the question, and he just said yes, and that was it. And then, they went to Bill Huber, and Bill started to ask his question. And then LaFleur actually went back and he said, I don't, get that question. I was under contract. I don't know if you understand how it works. This was the first time that I remember that he actually got, snippy's the wrong word. And it was, listen, he had every right to answer that question that way. It was a weird question at best. And I'm not exactly sure where it was going, where the line of the question he was going. And it's not to, it was Rob Reichel who asked the question. It's not to, attack Rob here, anything like that. It's not what I'm about. But it was interesting to me. Like, LaFleur is as even keeled as it gets. He knows how to, handle bizarre, odd, bad questions, whatever. That was the first time I could remember he just got a little bit, perturbed at a question. So if you have a chance, maybe go back and look at that. All right, let's go over my top 3 and bottom 3 graded plays from the defensive side of the football this week. Let's start with number 1 overall, Kenny Clark. I thought he was phenomenal this week. It was actually my highest grade that I gave any defender so far this season. And you might be thinking back in your head as I'm saying this right now, I don't remember Kenny Clark getting any major sacks or anything. Like, he was so good in that game. Like, watch how he disrupts the line of scrimmage. He started a little slow. First quarter was a little bit slower. And then as the game went on, he just kind of ramped up. He was resetting the line of scrimmage in the run game. He was getting consistent pressure. Remember, he's usually a guy that's maybe going to be a little bit more of a slow burn type of, pass rusher. But there was one play in particular. It was almost like, I don't know if I can say it was like Aaron Donald-esque, but maybe like Grady Jarrett-esque, where he just basically sidesteps and explodes as much as Kenny Clark can explodes to the quarterback, and that was a really nice play. But just there's one play where he basically takes an offensive lineman with like one hand and throws him down. Like, just power, strong Kenny Clark type of football that we have seen for the last 3 years. We haven't seen it consistently. It's starting to mirror last year a little bit, where Kenny Clark had some injuries early in the year. He started the season slow, and then at the end of the year, he really came on really, really strong. We're starting to see that. A couple of the last games, I want to say 2 of the last 4 were some really, really high grades for Kenny Clark. So hopefully this is a harbinger of things to come for Kenny as the season goes on, because right now he's trending to, this would be the first time ever in my 4 years of doing this that he wouldn't grade with a plus 10 or better grade at the end of the season. So he might need a couple playoff games and some really strong play over the last 2 regular season games and at least a couple playoff games to get there. He's still got a chance, but this was a great way to do it. He basically doubled his score on the season just in this game alone. Phenomenal outing for Kenny Clark. Number 2 on my list. This one's probably not going to be surprising for those of you who are remembering back and watching the game. Number 2 is Chris Barnes. And every once in a while, and we've certainly had it happen here as I've been discussing my grades throughout the season, or at least through the last 100 episodes. And every once in a while, there'll be a player that everyone falls in love with during the week because they maybe made a splash play or 2, but the overall play doesn't back up that one splash play, or it just, it just wasn't as good maybe as expected. I thought Chris Barnes was really, really good. Kind of similar to Kenny Clark, started a little bit slow. You go back and you watch the first quarter and just how he kind of reacted to plays. There were a couple iffy plays in there. And then the second through fourth quarter, or second quarter up until the point he got injured, I should say, really, really fantastic football. And I posted some videos out on Twitter. Make sure to check those out. I'm going to retweet them today as well. But, there's one play where he's taking Curtis Samuel up the middle of the field, up the seam in a cover 2 defense. That's gorgeous. The play that he, broke up the screen in the backfield. Yeah, the great hit on the running back in the backfield was fantastic, but how quickly he diagnoses that play. Like, the center just barely starts to come out of his pass protection duties and he bursts to the running back. And it's one thing to diagnose it that quickly, but then go use your instincts and be aggressive and get to the running back. He did all of it, and it was a really gorgeous play. And then there's another play where, he basically reads run right the entire way, or for him, it's his left, but run right. And, the tight end comes out. I think it was the tight end comes out to block him. He avoids the tight end. Then a guard comes out. He takes on the guard and then still makes the tackle. Those are the type of plays where we haven't seen from Packers linebackers a ton over the course of the last, 5, 6, 7 years. So that is a huge, huge play for Chris Barnes. And what have we all talked about now, right? A pass defense play where he's running the seam with Curtis Samuel, a screen play where he's using his instincts to diagnose and then make a punishing hit on the running back at the point of attack. Not only diagnosing a stretch play to the right, but then maneuvering past a tight end who's trying to block him, then taking on a guard and still making the tackle. That's physical football. That's instinctual football. That's coverage. Like, that's a little bit of everything. And we're talking about an undrafted free agent in his rookie season who's been injured this year. That is huge for Chris Barnes. Does he have a ways to go yet? Yes. But there are some serious flashes there, especially in this game, of what he could potentially become if this sort of thing continues. And then number 3, Adrian Amos. You saw the 3 pass deflections. You saw the sack. All those sort of things, really, really good. But I just thought he had another really overall great game. Adrian Amos is playing some really strong football. Also, kudos to Dean Lowry and Darnell Savage, who are right behind. And Preston Smith had a nice game, too. There were some really nice grades in this game. So good game for the defense. On the flip side, 3 players who did not grade well. Number 1 is not going to be a surprise to you. Kevin King, bad holding penalty on 3rd down, gives up the pass to DJ Moore along the sideline. Quick slant to DJ Moore in the middle of the field, which goes for, I want to say, 15 yards. A play where he misses a tackle completely on a running back. Another play where he basically puts his hands in his pockets, not literally, but figuratively, and just lets Darnell Savage do all the work along the sidelines. Just some bad football in some pretty large stretches from Kevin King. And again, if you go back, I've defended Kevin King. I still think he's a solid corner in the NFL. This was a very poor game from him whatsoever, and really bad timing after I just defended him all last week. So rough game from Kevin King. Number 2, Rashawn Gary. I thought he had a really, really nice pass rush towards the end of the game at a 3 technique position on the interior of the defensive line, where he burst around the guard and makes a really nice play on the quarterback. That was great. The rest of the game, not so much. Along the edges, he struggled to put any sort of pass rush plan together. I thought he was okay against the run, but really struggled, rushing the passer in this game. I thought both Preston and Za'Darius were a step ahead of him in this game, especially Preston. And it's just been a little bit inconsistent from Rashawn Gary lately. So he was my second lowest rated player. And then 3rd on my list was Will Redmond. Just some really weird plays at times. I think there was one play where the entire play is going one way and he's just going the other, and there's nobody really over there. Just some odd stuff. Wasn't a massively low grade, but just kind of a few fluke plays from Will Redmond where you would have liked a little bit better coverage, a little bit better anticipation, a little bit better instincts. So not a brutal game, but not a great game from Will Redmond either. So top 3, Kenny Clark, Chris Barnes, Adrian Amos. Bottom 3, Kevin King, Rashawn Gary, and Will Redmond. That's going to do it for me. Thanks so much, as always, for joining me. Make sure to check out Dusty, Steve, and Sarah wherever you get your favorite podcasts on today's Pack-A-Day podcast. Make sure to follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast and myself at Andy Herman NFL. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Yes, I'll be going Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I do not stop 365 days a year, just like the podcast as well. So I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.